I'm unbeatable. I can't be beat. This is impossible. You can dent me. You can damage me. You're never ever going to beat me. I'm totally and completely, unequivocally unbeatable.
8 out of 8, baby. Finally did it. I mean, took us till, round 18? But we got it. So, yeah, I've got the suit on. It's a special occasion. It's a very rare occasion, this season especially. Quick note, though, this idiot didn't realise till after recording that the collar was on the outside of the blazer. So, he does know how to dress himself, just so you guys know. He doesn't ask other people to do it for him. But he was just a bit of a moron on this occasion. Enjoy. But I'll leave a recap of last week up on the screen for you now. Finally, but let me just go through how good this week was, okay? Are you ready for this? Rabbitohs 13 plus, I said 32-18, the score was 32-16, I was 2 points off. Titans 1-12, I predicted a 4-point gap, they won by 4 points. Panthers 1-12, I predicted an 8-point gap, they won by 8 points. Bulldogs 13 plus, they scored 13. Will you give me that? No? Fair enough. Storm 13 plus, almost. Pesky Tigers. Seagulls 1-12 points. DCE is the god of rugby league. Roosters and Knights got the wrong way round. But some of you may remember I made some predictions in the Roosters game. I predicted a bunch of try scorers. But what I also predicted was this. I also think there's going to be a sin bin from Jared Warrior-Hargreaves.
There's a high shot, some aggressive defence. It's on report and it's in the bin.
Quick note though, for anyone that's going to follow my predictions and my tips here for bets, please be careful, because that is the only 8 out of 8 I've had this season in the NRL. It's been all over the place. And the reason I got 8 out of 8 is because I predicted games all over the place, like the Titans to beat the Sharks. Like, that's not a normal prediction. So if you're going off my word to place money, please be careful and only bet on something if you feel comfortable with that game. Please don't just take my word for it, because even my bets have been shocking this season. So that's the warning out the way. But let's crack on with the first game and hopefully have an actual decent 5-game round. Starting with the first game, we have the Dolphins taking on the Rabbitohs, starting with the team list of the Dolphins. In the backs, they have Trey Fuller, Jermaine Osako, Jake Averillo, Herbie Farnworth, Jack Bostock, Cody Nikorima, and Isaiah Katoa. In the forwards is Jesse Bromwich, Max Plath, Tavita Panga Jr., Connolly Lemuelu, Ewan Aitken, and Kenneth Bromwich. On the bench is Josh Kerr, Mark Nichols, Ray Stone, and Sean O'Sullivan. On the side of the Rabbitohs, in the backs, they have Jai Gray, Alex Johnston, Tarnay Milne, Richard Kennett, Jacob Gagai, Jack Whiten, and Cody Walker. In the forwards is David Moale, Damien Cook, Sean Kepi, Michael Cheekham, Jai Arrow, and Kian Kalamatangi. On the bench is Peter Mamazalis, Talis Duncan, Thomas Burgess, and Liam LeBlanc. The two things that I really want to highlight for this game are the fullbacks. I think Trey Fuller and Jai Gray, two very exciting fullbacks that we will only typically get to see based on either injuries or origin. Thankfully, it's only origin in this case. But Fuller and Gray are two really exciting fullbacks. I think Fuller is, I want to say he's 27. So in terms of age and experience, is going to be a little bit more advantageous for the Dolphins here. But if you look at the experience in the halves with Whiten and Walker, that really makes up for it. I know Nikorima's been around a while, but compare that to Isaiah Katoa as well. He's a huge inclusion. There's no Jeremy Marshall-King in the number 9 role for the Dolphins. There's Damien Cook, though, on the side of the Rabbitohs. Another thing, there doesn't appear to be a recognised hooker off the bench. Sean O'Sullivan might take on that role, but if they ask Max Plath to basically take on the hooking role for 80 minutes, might take a little bit of sting out of the game as the game goes on. And with Peter Mamazalis as Damien Cook's relief for possibly, a 15, 20 minute, 30 minute stint, they can kind of, work off each other. They could maybe put him in the 13 role as well. So they can kind of, move some things around. But I think in terms of the depth available, the Rabbitohs are in a slightly better position, mainly in the hooking role. In terms of form as well, the Rabbitohs have won the last 5 in a row. Dolphins have only won 1 in their last 5, I think. So as much as I could go off vibes and ridiculous games, ridiculous performances, I actually trust the Rabbitohs right now, so I don't feel like this is a game where I should be looking at some kind of weird, superstitious reasons that anything funky should be going on. The Dolphins are a solid team. The Rabbitohs are also a solid team. I think they're both reliable enough to have a somewhat normal game. And I think, as of right now, the Rabbitohs are clearly the better team. And given Jai Gray coming into a team that has Jack White and Cody Walker available, and Damien Cook running the game through the middle, the forward pack looks great. Kian Kalamatangi's improving game after game in the number 13 role, and he'll get used to it. He's not happy with it as much as second row, but he's getting used to it and will improve. I think the Rabbitohs are in a prime position here to take another win. So I'm going to go with the Rabbitohs to win, 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Sharks taking on the Tigers, starting with the team list of the Sharks. In the backs, they have William Kennedy, Sione Katoa, Jesse Ramian, Cale Iro, Ronaldo Mulatalo, Daniel Atkinson, and Braden Trindle. In the forwards is Royce Hunt, Blake Brayley, Oregon Kaufusi, Britton Nakora, Teague Wilton, and Cameron McInnes. On the bench is Jesse Calhoun, Thomas Hazelton, Toby Rudolph, and Braden Hamlin-Ueli. On the side of the Tigers, in the backs, they have Jareen Bula, Alex Lobb, Adam Dewey, Solomon Fartape, Charlie Staines, Lachlan Galvin, and Aidan Caesar. In the forwards is Stefano Otokomanu, Api Coruscant, David Clemmer, John Bateman, Samuel Afenu, and Fanua Pole. On the bench is Heath Mason, Sione Fainu, Alex Seyfarth, and Ruben Porter. This feels like one of those games that could really be thrown all over the place. Part of me really wanted to take a Tigers win here, because I've said this multiple times. I think Bula, Galvin, Caesar, and Coruscant is the best spine that the Tigers have got. I can't remember who it was that they played against a couple of weeks ago, but I went against them when they had that spine. I even acknowledged in the video that they had that spine, and they won, even though I went against them. I can't remember who it was, but it was a couple of weeks ago. Now, obviously, the Sharks without Nico Hines. I will repeat what I said, basically tweeted on Twitter and mentioned in the last video. Nico Hines is good, but not great. He can keep you in a game, he can allow the game to flow, he can produce great moments, but in terms of putting your faith in him to win you the game, I think it's a little bit too 50-50 for me. He can certainly have game-winning moments. Daniel Atkinson, I think, is quite an exciting number 6. I first really saw him during the Rugby League World Cup. I want to say it was Italy that he played for, I still can't remember though. But Atkinson and Trindle, I think, are two fairly exciting halves. I just think that this will be a slightly more normal game, but I would not be surprised, given this spine of the Tigers, if they got it done. So I'm going to go with the Sharks, but I'm not particularly confident. Given their recent form, I think they've won 1 in the last 5. Tigers have won 2 in the last 5, I want to say. I just think the Sharks will sort it out and they'll just about be okay. But once again, and the last time I'll say it, don't be surprised if the Tigers get it done, because their efforts against Melbourne Storm, I know they conceded 40 points, but their efforts to kind of stay in that game and keep it competitive, to put some doubt in that game as well, was very impressive against a very strong, typically defensive team, and still conceding 40 points isn't great. So that's kind of what I'm going off. The defensive side of the Tigers is lacking, and I think with a little bit of difference and speed in there from Atkinson and Trindle, maybe taking a little bit of, I don't know, maybe Nico Hines might slow the game down a bit at times, but I think Daniel Atkinson will maybe offer a bit of pace in there and will just about be the difference maker in this game. And not having Nico Hines will maybe bring more people into it. Britton Nakora, Oregon Kaufusi, Teague Wilton will probably bring those guys on the edges in a little bit more into the game, especially Britton Nakora, because I think he's fantastic on that right edge. So I just think the Sharks will just about get it done. So I'm going to go with the Sharks to win, 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Titans taking on the Eels, starting with the team list of the Titans. In the backs, they have Keanu Kinney, Alifiana Khan-Pereira, Brian Kelly, Bo Fermor, Jojo Fafita, Jaden Campbell, and Kieran Foran. In the forwards is Josiah Pahulu, Sam Verrills, Erin Clark, David Fafita, Cleese Hass, and Chris Randall. On the bench is Isaac Leo, Jacob Alec Weinke, Keenan Palacia, and Philip Sammy. For the Eels, in the backs, they have Clint Gutherson, Jake Tango, Will Penasini, Blaise Talangi, Lorenzo Mulatalo, Dylan Brown, and Dejan Assi. In the forwards is Regan Campbell-Gillard, Brendan Hans, Joe Offengawi, Ryan Mattison, Matt Dury, and Charlie Geimer. On the bench is Matthew Arthur, Sean Lane, Luca Moretti, and Bryce Cartwright. So the first thing for me, obviously no Mitchell Moses because of origin selection, but I think even with him in there, I'm still mostly confident about the Titans. The main reason is I think Jaden Campbell at 6 is possibly his best role. We'll have to see. He's still learning that position. I think offers a lot of pace and a lot of skill in that role. Allowing Keanu Kinney to stay at fullback, I think he's absolutely excellent. His work rate, his running is beautiful to watch. And Kieran Foran at 7 gives him a little bit more calmness, a bit more structure. So I like him there. And then Sam Verrills and Chris Randall at 9 and 13. I quite like that. Just letting them swap in that role if and when needed, just to keep that pace going. So the first 20 minutes, Verrills takes on the number 9 role, but Randall at any point can kind of step in if needed. And then they sort of swap. And they kind of work off each other and keep that speed and that sting through the middle, which I quite like, and really put the Eels on the back foot. Then you look at players like Jake Tungo, Lorenzo Mulatalo, even Blaise Talangi at this point, but mainly the 2 wingers, very inexperienced. So if you get some quick play the balls, you start attacking the edges, they're a little bit out of position, you're on the front foot, they might make some rash decisions and you can really capitalise off the back of that. I think Clint Gutherson as well is certainly prone to mistakes. The Titans are as well, but I think without Mitchell and Moses there really controlling the game, it does feel like Brown really steps up when Moses isn't there. But overall, this is against a Titans team that's starting to look a lot more dangerous. We're taking a little bit more seriously at this point, and the Eels still have their problems. In the forwards, I actually really do like the Titans in this one. I think the Eels normally have pretty strong forwards, but the Titans look really good. I think players like Liu and Palacia off the bench have been really strong this season, especially Isaac Liu. I think he's looked brilliant. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. I do feel confident enough in the Titans to really dominate. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eels could do something about it because of exciting players like Blaise Talangi, Will Penasini, Dylan Brown. They could certainly offer something in parts of the game, but I think the Titans should be okay to dominate with the speed through the middle and players like Kinney and Campbell linking up with Foran, controlling the game. So I'm pretty confident with the Titans. So I'm going to go with the Titans to win 13+. Next up, we have the Broncos taking on the Dragons, starting with the team list of the Broncos. In the backs, they have Tristan Saylor, Corey Oates, Katoni Staggs, Dane Mariner, Jesse Arthurs, Ezra Mam, and Josh Rogers. In the forwards is Corey Jensen, Billy Walters, Xavier Willison, Brendan Piacora, Jordan Rickey, and Tyson Smoothie. On the bench is Blake Moser, Kobe Hetherington, Josiah Karapani, and Martin Tapu. On the side of the Dragons, in the backs, they have Tyrell Sloan, Christian Tuipulotu, Moses Suli, Max Feagai, Michaeli Ravalawa, Carl Flanagan, and Jesse Marshke. In the forwards is Francis Molo, Jacob Liddell, Jack DeBellin, Raymond Faitala-Mariner, Jaden Sewer, and Tom Eisenhuth. On the bench is Jaime Sele, Luciano Leilua, Toby Couchman, and Ben Murdoch-Masila. First of all, looking at the huge players that are missing for the Broncos, there's obviously no Reece Walsh. There's still no Adam Reynolds, of course. No Payne Haas. Those guys are a huge miss. So there's less sting through the middle from the Broncos with no Payne Haas. And in terms of attacking the edges, I think Tristan Saylor, when he first came in this season, had some great moments and looked pretty exciting, but is still not the finished article. Can have some good moments, but maybe a little bit few and far between in this game. The most important thing for the Dragons in this is I think Cal Flanagan's had enough experience as a number 7 to really take on this game. I think he's matured a lot as a player as well, and they'll really be looking at him to control this. They'll give Jesse Marshke some opportunities to take on the kick-in, and they won't just completely take him out of the game. But I think they'll really be relying on Cal Flanagan, which I think, based on his improvement in terms of maturity and quality as a player in this system, is pretty beneficial. Tyrell Sloan in that as well, hoping to attack the edges and create overlaps. It's great to have him there for the Dragons, and I think at least having a bit of clarity with Suli and Feagai in the centres helps as well. Having Faitala-Mariner and Sewer in the edges as well helps as well. Hoping that Jaden Sewer has a big game, basically showing this is why you should have picked me again for such an important game in State of Origin. Tom Eisenhuth at 13 sometimes can go missing a little bit, but a few weeks ago started having some much more important performances. In terms of players off the bench, I think Leilua and Murdoch-Masila will be huge inclusions coming off the bench as well. I just think the Dragons are in a much better position based in terms of personnel. I think Staggs and Mariner will cause issues on the edges, and Ezra Mam can open up defences left, right and centre. I think he's a fantastic player, but I don't know if there's enough help around him, and I still think that the Broncos are still a little bit too weak-minded too often, and the Broncos might still score first, but I think they could easily then allow the Dragons to score 2 or 3 off the back of that, because they're just not in the right frame of mind. They're not up for the fight. They're not competitive enough this season. They just don't give off the impression that they're ready to get into a dogfight. If it's not an easy game, then nah, we're not taking part. That's what it feels like for me with the Broncos right now. And until they get everyone in there, including Adam Reynolds, they are probably not going to make the top 8, in my opinion. But with all that being said, I think the Dragons are in the best position right now to control the game, create exciting opportunities, really take it to a weak-minded Broncos team at the moment. So I'm going to go with the Dragons to win 1 to 12 points. Finally, for this round, we have the Sea Eagles taking on the Knights, starting with the team list of the Sea Eagles. In the backs, they have Tom Trbojevic, Jason Saab, Tommy Talau, Ruben Garrick, Leahy Hopewate, Luke Brooks, and Jamie Humphreys. In the forwards is Toa Sipley, Jake Simpkin, Josh Olaye, Hamal Olakwatu, Carl Lawton, and Nathan Brown. On the bench is Clayton Fa'alalo, Gordon Chankum Tong, Ethan Bullymore, and Corey Waddell. On the side of the Knights, they have Fletcher Sharp, Christian Mapapalangi, Dylan Lucas, Thomas Kant, Greg Marju, Will Price, and Jackson Hastings. In the forwards is Daniel Saifiti, Phoenix Crosland, Leo Thompson, Tyson Frizzell, Kai Pearce-Paul, and Adam Elliott. On the bench is Jaden Brayley, Jacob Saifiti, Brody Jones, and Matt Croker. The first thing that I'm looking at here is probably the inexperience in the backs for the Knights. I think, Fletcher Sharp has had a couple of games this season. Will Price now has as well. The most experienced players in there are Greg Marju and Jackson Hastings. But with Mapapalangi, Lucas, and Kant, they'll be on the back foot. Now, what I would have done in terms of changes to this Sea Eagles team, which seems a little bit odd, is unless Hopewate has experience on the wing, then fair enough, and Tommy Talau has experience at centre, not too sure. But you could have just put Tom Trbojevic back in the centre position, Hopewate at fullback, and Tommy Talau on the wing. You could have just done that. But, I'm not Anthony Seibold. He can do what he likes. Fine by me. But maybe having Tom Trbojevic at 1 is to help out with having someone inexperienced in Jake Humphreys in the number 7 role. Maybe that's the thought process there, is have someone with more experience in the spine. And if that's the case, do you know what? Fair enough. Jake Simpkin, inexperienced, relatively speaking, number 9, but I think has been a solid addition, works out quite nicely for the Sea Eagles team. The forwards for me of the Knights, I think, are still slightly stronger. Saifiti, Thompson, Frizzell, Kai Pearce-Paul, I think have done fairly well this season, but players like Hamal Olakwatu, a little bit like who else I mentioned previously, Jaden Sewer, wanting to prove a point on why I wasn't selected for the biggest game in State of Origin, the decider. So potentially he's going to try and have one of the best games of his career. We'll see. I do think that in terms of putting up points, the Knights do tend to struggle for the most part. The Sea Eagles, I feel like they struggle a little bit without DCE. Like, their kicking game becomes non-existent. Whether Jamie Humphreys will take all that on, a little bit like with the Dragons and Flanagan taking that on over, who else I mentioned, over Marshgate. Potentially that's how they'll do it, but I don't know. I don't know if Luke Brooks is the type to really control a game like that, but we'll just have to see. I think Tom Trbojevic back at number 1 with a full game in there, back at full fitness, is probably the difference maker for me. And of course, no Kalen Ponga being selected for Origin. I think that's the decider for me. Trbojevic over Sharp, Brooks over Price, but Hastings over Humphreys most likely. And then Simpkin and Crosland for me, I can give or take either of those guys. So I think just in terms of individuals at the moment and having Talau and Garrett attacking the edges along with Olakwatu and Lawton, going at Lucas and Kant, that's going to be the tough one. That's going to be a really tough one. And Mapapalangi as well, being under pressure. Greg Marju as well would be coming up against Jason Saab. In terms of the aerial threat, I think Greg Marju can have some... In terms of attacking aerial threat, Greg Marju's good, but defensively, a lot shorter than Saab, so I think that's the kind of area they're going to look to attack in terms of the kicking game. And Trbojevic attacking the edges will have a go at Lucas and Kant. So I think that, for me, is the main difference. The back line of the Knights looking a little bit less experienced for me. So that's why I'm just going to edge it to the Sea Eagles. I don't think either team's going to be great, because I think the Knights will have issues spreading the ball, and the Sea Eagles typically look worse without DCE, obviously. But I think the Sea Eagles, for those reasons that I mentioned previously, are just about stronger. So I'm going to go with the Sea Eagles to win 1 to 12 points. To recap my predictions for this round, I'm going with the Rabbitohs and Sharks to win by 1-12, Titans 13+, and then the Dragons and Seagulls 1-12. In terms of winners' confidence, I'm at 100%, just because I said 100% last week, so let's go with that. In terms of breaking down each game, I'm confident with the Rabbitohs. I'm 51% in favour of the Sharks. I'm very confident with the Titans, slightly confident with the Dragons, and like 51% in favour of the Seagulls on this one. So some of them I'm not too sure about, but let's just go with 100%, shall we? In terms of margin confidence, 100%, why not? Rabbitohs, I think, could win by 13+, but I don't think the Dolphins would allow it. The Tigers, I think, could easily come out and win 13+ against the Sharks because it's the Tigers. They could also get battered 80-0 because it's the Tigers. I don't see the Eels making it too competitive against the Titans. Broncos could beat the Dragons, but not too confident on that one. And the Knights, I think, could still beat the Seagulls. So we'll see how it goes overall, but that's my recap for this round. So there you have my NRL Round 19 predictions. If you've got your own, do let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know how you got on last week. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you for joining me on this special occasion. I'm going to take this off now because I'm absolutely boiling. But yeah, that's going to be it, and I'll see you next time.